Okay.
Okay.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Letterform Lectures, online edition. My name is Grendel. I'm director of Type West, which is Letterform Archive School of Type Design. And we do have an international audience again today. So please type in where you're coming from in the chat. We want to know. And if you have questions for our speaker, please put them in the Q&A and we will answer them at the end of the presentation. So first off, I want to give a big fat shout out to Anna Stewart, who's doing the work behind the scenes today. Thank you so much, Anna. Yes. Okay. Welcome to Letterform Lectures. These informative talks are held 12 times a year to round out our Type West students' education. And speaking of Type West, our type design grads of 2024 have a website now. Their original typefaces are available for viewing. Anna, if you don't mind dropping the link to that website in the chat, people check these typefaces out. They are amazing. And our docent-led intro tours are back. You can experience Letterform Archives home in San Francisco, or you can visit virtually from anywhere in the world. So book a guided tour, either on-site or online, hosted by a knowledgeable guide. And we offer tours in 15 languages, thanks to our diverse docent team. What's coming up next at the archive? First of all, we have a workshop with Data Pro RJ Andrews. RJ will work with you to dissect the elements that make data graphics spectacular in this one-day workshop, which includes a copy of Andrew's new book, Info We Trust. So don't miss this excellent workshop. Then in our salon series, we have a hybrid salon, online or on-site, with our founder, Rob Saunders, who's chatting with our associate curator, type whisperer, Stephen Coles, to discuss the origins of the incredible collection that's known today as Letterform Archive. Sign up now. That's this Thursday. And this Saturday, Letterform Archive turns 10 this year. And what better way to celebrate than with an exhibition highlighting our favorite artifacts, specially chosen by everyone who works here at Letterform Archive. It's an amazing show, and we hope you can join us in person for the opening bash this Saturday. So for more information about registering for that or signing up for the workshops or more Letterform lectures, etc., go to letarc.org/events, or better yet, become a Letterform Archive member to help keep great lectures like this one today going. And follow us on Instagram, Letterform Archive, or at TypeWest, to stay on top of upcoming events and programs. Okay, Letterform lectures are co-presented by Letterform Archive and the SFPL Book Arts and Special Collections. Letterform Archive is a nonprofit institution housing over 100,000 works of graphic design history. We are dedicated to the art and the craft of the letterform. You can view all Letterform lectures online soon after they happen. Just check our website, letterformarchive.org. Okay. Clearview. James Montalbano is a prolific type designer whose work has been featured in the New York Times, in Wired, and ID magazines. And we invited him today to share the story of Clearview, which is a lettering system he designed along with David Meeker to optimize visibility in poor driving conditions on the freeway. Implementing Clearview sounds like a no-brainer, but there have been setbacks. Did the Department of Transportation put the brakes on Clearview or give it the green light? Sorry, not sorry for the puns. All right, take it away, James. Yeah, pathetic. I know.
Yes. Well, no, it's not pathetic. Actually, it's not Don Meek. It's Don Meeker, not
Oh,
David
Don,
Meeker.
sorry.
That's all right.
Yeah.
Anyway, hello everybody. As the slide says, is it a type system or a lifestyle? I've been working on this since
Oh,
the
you need to
early.
share.
Oh, I thought I did.
Uh,
Oh, sorry. Sorry. I'll be right there. Okay. Here we go. I sort of lost everybody for a while. Can you see it now?
No, can't see it yet. Mm-hmm. Okay, wait, let's see. We hear somebody said they can see it, so I think we're
I
good.
can see it.
Okay, good, good, good. All right, let's roll. I'm gonna drop off here, but I'm still hanging in there. Don't worry.
Okay, okay. So, like I said, I've been working on this since the early 90s, and this was not my idea. I got a call from a guy named Don Meeker who got my name from somebody, a guy named Mies Hora, who I'd done some work with, and Don and Mies were friends. And Don was looking for a type designer to help him with this project. And the project began um, when Don was asked to design new signage for the Oregon park system. And he started looking at what was there in Oregon, and it was very confusing. He didn't know what was what. And Don is very complicated and deliberate person. So he saw all these signs and decided that the way to solve it was to create a new typeface design. Why he thought that, I'm not sure. And he just, he looked around at the existing conditions around, and he came to the conclusion that the signage system in the country was really confusing. It was really built, sort of ad hoc after World War II. And, it just didn't really make a lot of sense to him. So, the roadside history, started out with stones and route markers and metal signs and, black letters on white and this and that. And in the 1950s, they developed the first what they call mixed case, which is what we would call upper and lower case. A designer named Forbes, and it was the late 40s and early 50s. And if you can see down here, it's the first use of that. And this was the current series when Don started examining this. This is what called standard highway alphabet, series B, C, D, E. E modified was a modification of series E to make it wider so you could put the little glass reflectors in the letters so they would reflect back. And then E modified is the only series that has a lower case. And then there's series F, and nobody can really figure out where series F is used. I don't think I've ever seen it used on the highway, but I think it was designed originally for what's known in the business as bifurcated symbols, where you have two major highways going and splitting off into two different directions. And so they needed something like that. So anyway, so the problem with this alphabet is when it was little glass reflectors reflecting back, everything was fine. But they started to use what's called high brightness materials, where not only did the letters reflect back from the sign to the sign driver, but the background did too. And so what creates this problem of called halation or overglow, which really kind of obscures the details of the typeface. You can see the B, the E. I mean, it's very difficult. So knowing that this was a problem, the Federal Highway Administration had a solution to just make everything bigger, 20% larger. But if you think about the signage infrastructure on the nation's highways, all this overhead signage with supports, how do you make signs 20% larger without encouraging an enormous cost? And could it even work? Certain I mean, if you see this Bergholz, we use this word Bergholz as a test because it has all the details of the that are critical to readability. It's ridiculous. So one thing that Don started looking at was, were there commercial typefaces available to do the job instead of the Highway Gothic, the E modified? Now, the golden, whatever you want to call it, mean for typeface recognition or legibility, supposedly the government is, it's a 1 to 5 stroke width to height ratio. So if you see on the left, the stroke width, the vertical stroke width is equal to 5 of the horizontal stroke width to height ratio. And so, transport D fits in. Some of these are close, but not all. And so Don and his team started looking at these things to see if they worked. And so you could see the various comparisons here. The top one, E modified, and to be frank, they all look better than E modified, whether they have a 1 to 5 stroke width to height ratio or not. And so what they did was, and this is, you're going to see this throughout the thing, is they made signs, Sandy Point, based on all of these typefaces in uppercase and all caps. And Don at the time was living in Larchmont in Westchester County. And they went out to the train station and they put the signs up and started to look at them and see if they could make any decision as to what the performance was for these things. So they were disappointed in the performance, so they decided uh, to develop their own typeface. So this is a sequence from the E modified to what they thought may be a more legible lowercase a, and this is their design. I'm not involved yet. So if you see here the Grande, that's the E modified, and to the right, La Grande, Hell's Canyon, that's their version of the first iteration of Clearview. And then Smith, the uppercase, um, street name signs in the US were, or not street names, sorry, secondary road signs, things that are not on limited access highways or tend to be signed in uppercase. And so they thought that was a mistake. So they started looking at a more condensed version to replace that all uppercase functionality. So they started looking at this stuff. They started making tests. And originally, excuse me, they did tests indoors on computers, and they put people on chairs and rolled them away down the corridor and kept rolling them towards the screen and noted when they could see or not see. And there are two things at play here. There's something called readability, and another is called recognition. Now, readability is the ability to read something at a distance that you don't know what you're reading. You're discovering it for the first time. Recognition is, when do you recognize the words you're looking for? And in road guide sign research, recognition is much more important because everybody is looking at the signage, trying to find their way to their destination. So they know what the word is, but how close to the sign will they get before they can read it? And so after doing the tests indoors on a computer screen, they went out and started making signs and started taking a look at it. And if you notice the gentleman in the front seat with the beard, with the white pants on, that's Don Meeker. And the gentleman behind him is Chris O'Hara, his assistant. And so they went out and made signs and looked at them at night and during the day. And they started to look at comparisons between E-modified Series D, Series C, and you know, they started to take in some data. So Clearview versus Series E modified was up to a 16% gain in recognition and legibility during nighttime viewing. Clearview mixed case versus Series D uppercase improved minimum of 14% with no loss of legibility. So this is significant data. So they went out to Texas, Texas Institute. I can't remember the acronym, but TTI, and they made these full size. These are 16-inch letters, and they got their data, but they were unhappy with their poor drawing skills. So they came to me. They came to my studio on a hot August afternoon, and they showed me all the work they had done. And my first comment was, is the crappy letter spacing and poorly drawn shapes a part of the reason the legibility works, or is that just poor work? And no, we want it better. We want it better. So I took their design and I started creating four corners of a digital master. Now, these images you see here are screen grabs from a type editing software I used to use called Icarus M. And Icarus M was not a PostScript based design. It was really designed to plot artwork, analog artwork on a tablet. And you would click these points to capture the curves with a puck. And it was very accurate, and it was really a great way to, um, modify their drawings. So I have a thin and condensed and regular width, and I have a black condensed and regular width. And so you can see my version in the white and their version in the pale green. And I think, my version was a little clearer, it was a little more, more clean and accurate, especially if you look at the lowercase a. And is there an S in here? Lowercase s, yes, in Hells. Anyway, we were all very happy with this version of it, and this was the condensed version, which is superior to theirs because all they did was basically optically condense their regular width, on a computer where you can sort of smash it together. So the redrawing of it really improved its shape and presence. So we created this family, and you'll notice Clearview BD55, BD45, 35, RG55. So the numbers related to where we thought these would be used in terms of speed limits. So Clearview Highway BD55 would be used on, limited access highways, high-speed highways, and 45, 35. And it just was a way of organizing these weights where we thought they might be used. It proved to be not a very useful category, but it gave us a series of fonts that, could be at least identified and, proposed in various uses. So we compared the BD55, which is in the upper left, with all those other versions of uh, alternatives to E-modified that were originally tested on the wall of that train station. And, it seemed to be doing its job. So you could see Highway E-Gothic. And the thing that's interesting is the Highway Gothic E-Modified looks really bold but the BD55 has the same stroke width to height ratio as 1:5. So, being a type designer, I just decided I would have to make um, a family out of it. So I sort of went to town using that interpolated data that I created for the original Clearview and made this family of fonts. And then, if you have a Roman, you have to have an italic. And and so there's three widths there. So I have these widths and italics. And you have to have small caps if you're going to like do all this. And so I created this family of fonts, and lo and behold, Self Magazine decided to use it. At the time, I was doing a lot of custom typeface work for Condé Nast, so it was easy for me to put this in front of the art directors of Self, and they liked it. So we have Clearview BD55, and that family of typefaces I made for that was used by Self, we called Clearview 1. So Clearview 1 Medium and Clearview BD55 are almost identical. There's slight differences in a little bit of the spacing, but not much. So this is where we were. We had the BD55 45 series. I had developed the Clearview 1 typeface family, and then working with Don, he got a call from the National Park Service, which was one of his clients. And it turns out that the Park Service got nervous that people were thinking that Smokey the Bear represented the Park Service, when in fact Smokey the Bear is part of the Forest Service. So, they're all in the Department of Interior, but this sort of hand wringing went on that the Park Service needed its own identity. So, uh, I don't know exactly when it happened, but Massimo Vignelli, the great designer, created this thing called the Unigrid system for the National Park Service. And it used Helvetica and a lot of off the shelf typefaces. And it's pretty, people know the way this looks. There's a modified version of Clarendon, which was the signature typeface using the Park Service. And so the top there, Clarendon, ITC Century, Times New Roman, and Helvetica were um, the typefaces that the Park Service was using. We started looking at different serif typefaces and sans serif typefaces for the Park Service to change its identity. And we were really interested in syntax. The sans serif, Hans Edward Meyer's really revolutionary sans serif, which if you place it over Garamond, it would be almost identical to the Garamond. And we picked these serif typefaces as a way of presenting something to the Park Service, as a way of changing their identity. So we looked at their bold, and we had syntax bold and syntax black. And so I created a custom syntax between the two. It's pretty easy to interpolate with a computer. And then we started looking at variations, the syntax bold and the syntax modified. There was a Frutiger bold, and then these things called Park Humanist, which was my sort of take on a custom version combining some of Frutiger's details with syntax details. And so we went to the Park Service and presented them with Saban, Plantin, and syntax, thinking that they were going to choose the sans serif, whatever it was, as the signature or the main typeface, and use the serifs as a supporting. But no, 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 no. They wanted a serif as the main typeface, and and the sans as a supporting. So I started creating these NPS roadway fonts, sort of, taking little details of Saban and Plantin and whatever, and trying to come up with something that was usable and readable. So in its development, I created these different serif structures, M, I, and OS. And if you look at the serifs, the M is the modern, whatever that means. And at the bottom, the OS is a classic old style bracketed serif. and there was one in the middle, intermediate for the eye. And we went out and took a look at them and put all the samples up and got in a car and turned the lights on. And the thing that's really interesting about uh, retroreflective material is it's tuned to go back to reflect back to where the light source is. So at night, when we were out on the test track, I would be standing outside the car, and the person in the car would turn the lights on, and they could see the response. The reflections would be sent right back to where they were in the car because they were behind the light source. My head being 2 or 3 feet above the car's light source, I couldn't see a thing because it didn't reflect back to me. And I found that to be really fascinating. Um, and so we came up with some variations to compete with the Clarendon. And, we have these two and the Clarendon, and then this was another one. And I made the I made the letter forms bigger, the X height bigger. So if you look at the G and the C at the bottom, they're essentially the same as the Clarendon, but the lowercase is slightly larger, and you can see it here more clearly. And created a series of typefaces based on that. So let me go back. So we did this, and our typeface, our new serif typeface, tested, about 14% better than their Clarendon. So it was something they had to consider. These these beginning faces, designs, being a type designer, I decided, well, hell, let me make a typeface family out of it. This is what typeface designers do. So if you look at the top, that's the thing we did for the National Park Service, and then the rest of it was something I used to as a jumping off point for the design. And so what happened was we have a new point of view. The larger X-site that we found to be successful in the National Park Service development, I wanted to bring into the Clearview. So at the top, you see Highway Gothic. The middle is the one we've been testing at PTI, Pennsylvania Transportation Institute, Texas Transportation Institute. And then the bottom is the new design with the larger X height. And we called it 5W. And you could see how it is different than the original, the Clearview Highway BD 55. So if you look at the middle and the bottom, this is how they're different. The white letters are much larger. So this was really exciting because I thought this was really something that could add to the legibility, readability, success of the Clearview design. So we went out, and these are all cutting files in Adobe Illustrator, full-size cutting files of all the different things. So we had all of these ideas, and we wanted to create. So okay, let me stop here. So in the guide sign world, white letters on a dark background is referred to as positive contrast, and dark letters on a light background are called negative contrast. Sort of counterintuitive to how graphic designers think. But we had all of these things, and we went out and we also did versions for regulatory and street name signs and all the various slots in the canon of letter signage. And we went out to PTI, Pennsylvania Transportation Institute, and we made full-size signs. Now, this is interesting because the test track at PTI is a test track. And while we were out there, they were testing, I don't know why they were testing it, but there was a bus that was driving around the test track at about 45 miles an hour. And it's a large test track. It's probably about 2.5 miles in circumference. So while we were out there, we always had to make sure we got out of the way of the bus coming around. And it was going on for hours. And I think they drove the bus like nonstop for weeks to see test certain components. I had no really idea what was going on. But anyway, we put these signs up, and they really did well. So we had these two designs: positive contrast, the white on the dark, and negative contrast, the dark on the light. And they look the same. And it's really interesting because they're not. So if you put them in their different environments, they look quite different. So what looks nice and robust at the top upper left, when you take that same letterform design and put it on the light background, it gets really kind of measly, where the one designed for it is quite nice. And then the version of the letterform design that's works well on the light background, when you put it on the dark background at the bottom, it looks too heavy. So it was really interesting to see how the letter forms and the spacing had to change for the environment. So we so we have these things, and what do we do? How do we name them? So one of our engineering partners said, "Well, why don't you call the white letters with a W and the dark letters with a B?" So that's what we did. So 5W would take the place of E modified, 4 W3, all these various versions. And then we created a version 6, which you see on the top, which would be used for those big bifurcated signs where major highways would split, and you'd had a lot of room to have these enormous signs across both roadways as they change direction. So here we go. You can see E modified going through the original Clearview with the little drawing here, and then their version of it, my version of BD55, and then the 5W. So at that test at PTI, there were representatives of Dallas Fort Worth Airport, and they immediately wanted to use Clearview Highway, but they wanted to use it with their E modified spacing, which we tried to talk them out of, because we tried to tell them that, spacing is integral to a typeface design as the letter forms are. But no, 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 no. We were happy with our E-modified spacing, and it really doesn't look very nice. If you look at that TRU in trucks or that UCK in trucks, the spacing is terrible. So TxDOT was looking at Clearview Highway 5W versus their E-modified, and they realized that there was a lot of there was an uncomfortable word length difference that they weren't very happy with. That our 5W, Clearview Highway 5W, is taking up more width than the E modified. So we made a version of it called E Clearview Highway 5WR, R meaning reduced letter space. And it wound up testing, much better than E modified and a little bit less than ours, but it tested quite well. So we have these shots of them in Texas, and then we have these combinations here. So in order to get the federal government to use it, we had to publish all the drawings and all the spacing information in the Federal Highway Manual, the MUTCD, the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices, which means that anyone could then take our drawings and our spacing and make their own version of it, which wasn't the greatest thing in the world for us, but we had to do that in order for them to support it. So it's out there, and it, it's Pennsylvania and Texas were the two great supporters of this. Um, and the thing you have to realize that, and I never knew this, the states are like the federal government's customers. And so when Pennsylvania and Texas saw how well Clearview was testing, they wanted it to use it. And they, in fact, demanded to use it. So the federal government eventually approved it as a approved alternative. They never got fully behind it, but they said you can use it as an alternate. And people use it, people don't use it. State of Michigan uses it really well. Some Arizona uses it really well. Some states don't want to use it at all. Um, so anyway, the big thing with the interpretation of federal guidelines is some of these fraction uses. You're constantly struggling with these things you never thought you'd have to struggle with. But anyway, so we spend an awful lot of time like talking to the federal government about how to use fractions. I don't know if we've ever come to a real conclusion about this. It's been so many years ago. Um, and the other thing about the MUTCD is it's full of layouts with specific measurements. And what Don proposed was let's create a proportional design. So on the left, you see the existing, there's 24 fixed dimensions here, 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 and here. What Don proposed as a proportion of the main lowercase, the X, you hear down here. And so everything, all the spacing is based on the proportion of the original layout. And it makes perfect sense and it works really well. But the Federal Higher Administration didn't want to have anything to do with it. Um, so it's just amazing. So, so these are the attributes. Um, Again, working or trying to get something approved to the federal government, you you run into so we ran into so many obstacles because we brought this in from the outside, that we were these crazy people who came up with this idea and it was better than what they were doing. But because it came in from the outside, there was always this incredible resistance to anything we put forward. And the only reason any of it got approved or grudgingly approved was the fact that we had uh, data to prove that it was better. So, I mean, you can see, look at the existing on top and the proposed at the bottom. I mean, it's the same size signs. Anyway, the thing that we wanted to test was the negative contrast. Um, and we just wanted to see how it would work. Um, and I don't know if we ever really got there. Um, I don't think we ever got the funding or the studies to look at the negative contrast. Um, anyway, so this is Dallas Fort Worth Airport using the Clearview, and as this development continued, we realized that we could use Clearview for signage in local signage, indoor signage, ADA, Americans with Disability Act. There's certain letter form restrictions. So the stroke width to height ratio is 1 to 9.8. It has to be at least one, it falls within their guidelines, and it was letter width to height. So I designed these typefaces to fit into what they call the visuals. There's a visual and there's tactile, sorry, where the tactile is for people who have limited sight and they have to feel the letter forms. So that's a very different set of parameters. And I didn't design Clearview 80A to meet, excuse me, tactile requirements, but visual requirements. And so this whole new typeface family came out of the Clearview project. Now, the italics I just did because you can't have a typeface family with italics, but the italics are never approved for ADA use. So we have Clearview ADA, and then the Clearview text that came out of that development that Self Magazine got involved with. And here we have the Clearview text. And then, not leaving well enough alone, I have a colleague, Maxime Zhukov, who used to be the typographic coordinator for the United Nations, now retired. He's a colleague of mine, a friend of mine, and he consulted on the development of Clearview in Cyrillic. And then my other colleague, Jerry Leonidas, who runs the type program at University of Reading in England, he consulted on the Greek development, and so we have that. Now, I have never released the Cyrillic or the Greek as a designed to a commercial font. It's well known in the type industry. If you ever release a typeface with Cyrillic, it will be pirated to the end of the earth. So I never did it. It's there, and if a client wants it, it's there. And it was a fun project to do, but I have no desire to release it, into the world as it is. We had the good fortune of being selected for the National Design Triennial for the Smithsonian Institute, and we were, we're in the Cooper Hewitt National Design Museum, and I think that's it. So Don Meeker and Christopher O'Hara for Meeker and Associates, me, Martin Petruka and Phil Garvey were the engineers and consultants for Pennsylvania. Gene Hawkins and Paul Carson from Texas Transportation Institute. And Sue Chrysler was really involved deeply in the experimental design at Texas. So those are the fonts. And thank you very much. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, James. We do have questions piling up, and I will read them out and type in the answers into the Q&A while you answer them. So please, everybody, drop your questions for James in the Q&A, and we will get going here with a few of them. Okay, AMT asks, how much time did you spend doing research?
I didn't do any of the research. That was Don. It's Don's purview. So I think we did several studies in Texas. We did several studies in Pennsylvania. So I can't give you an hourly thing, but you can go to clearviewhighway.com, and there's an awful lot of information there about the research, the studies that were done, the results of the studies. I think that's a easier way to answer it than me giving you some hourly or daily. I don't know. That was not my job. My job was drawing typefaces, designing and spacing typefaces. So Don's job was directing the research and also really dealing with the political nature of trying to get this stuff approved and bothering people about it. So it's a very distinctive separation of responsibilities. So go to clearviewhighway.com. It's full of information, really.
Okay, I got that down. You got the good end of the project, huh?
Without a doubt,
The
without a doubt.
the drawing and the spacing. That sounds like a pleasure compared to wrangling with the government agency.
Exactly, exactly.
Oh my God. Okay, next question is from Angela Rikers, who says, did you look at historical Gothic typefaces to create Clearview, or did you work only with the existing highway typefaces to improve them?
Well, you say historical Gothic. That to me means black letter. So no, I didn't look at any historical Gothic typefaces. No, there's a we looked at we looked at the performance of all of those off-the-shelf typefaces that I showed at the very beginning of the presentation, and sort of looked at their details and where they succeeded and where they failed. And Don had and his boys had originally created this skeleton of a design, and I wasn't going to change that. I was just going to improve it. And so that's my approach. So,
Okay, so you basically took Don's design, which if I recall correctly, you dissed a little bit at the beginning.
yeah, well, they weren't typeface designers. They did the best they could, but uh, like I said, when I first saw it, I said, is the crappy shapes and the bad spacing part of the reason it performs well? And they got a little pissed when I said that, but what are you gonna do?
Okay, we got a question from Stephen Cole. People keep the questions coming. Please put them in the Q&A. Okay, Stephen Calls asks, Clearview contains a lot of rule of thumb techniques for improving legibility. A large lowercase, open apertures, a tailed lowercase l to distinguish it from an uppercase I, and maybe a 1. Are there other shapes or characteristics that folks should look for when seeking to design legible type?
No, I think Stephen has you're trying to remove the ambiguity between shapes. So even in a sans serif typeface, I think sometimes it makes sense to put a foot on a numeral one just to make sure nobody. It also, if you're going to have a tabular setting, which means every letter is on the same, every number is on the same width, it really helps to put that foot on the one to have it, exist in its space in a better way. But it also, any ambiguity would be better. It's one of the reasons why a typeface with a single story G is not as couldn't is never going to be as legible as one with a double bold G, because the single story G can be mistaken for an O or for an A, or it just so any kind of ambiguity that you see between shared forms, if you can minimize those ambiguities, you are increasing the legibility of the design.
Yeah, it seems like just the goal is to get rid of any uh similarities.
Yeah, so
We
the foot on the L, lowercase
Mhm.
l, yes, it's there, and a lot of people hate it. And in the Clearview text, uh, Clearview text files, there's an alternate L without the foot in there that you can access with an open type feature. But
I feel like Din has a lowercase l with the same feature, right? And
yeah,
that
no,
was the same goal, right?
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. If you're going to use something for signage and for recognition at distance, you know, any kind of removal of ambiguity. Now I say that, and I look at my at the the Clearview Highway, and it has a single bold G, but a double bold G in a highway signage font was never going to work. Nobody would ever approve that. So there are some things that you can't always get what you want. So anyway,
Well, I feel like the double bold G would just be too much activity there. And
exactly,
like for something
exactly.
reflecting light off, you just get
No,
blasted.
exactly. It would create too much overglow, as they say in the business. So
Okay. Overglow. Okay. Much overglow.
halation is the other word they
Halation.
use.
Okay. All right. Next question. Mads asks, did some of the findings from the research on Clearview inform choices in the design process for NPS roadway?
Well, I would say that NPS roadway, the development of that influenced the final version of Clearview by increasing the X height of NPS roadway in order to because the original designs we did for the National Park Service, the results were like 10% improved legibility, which we knew we weren't going to be able to get them to change for something as minimal as that. So by increasing the X height of the lowercase, I think we went up to 14 or 16 or 18%. So it was the decisions we made on MPS roadway that influenced the final version of Clearview, not the other way around.
Okay. I love the way those two stories are integrated, actually.
Yeah, no, it was really
Yeah.
interesting.
Okay. Let's see. We got more questions coming. Jesse Kahn asks, are there experiments in increasing the readability and recognition of Clearview even more?
Um, no, because we don't have any. I mean, these studies are expensive, and you have to find funding to carry them out. And so I think, no, we don't have anything on planned. Um, we would have liked to have done a more complete study of the negative contrast designs, but the money just wasn't there. And then I can't remember, was it 2016 that the federal government just pulled Clearview for a couple of months and said, no, you can't use it. And then AASHTO, the Association of State and Highway Traffic Officials, put up such a stink that they forced the federal government to reinstitute the interim approval because they said, this works. We're going to keep using it, and we don't care what you say. And the federal government changed its tune. So, you know, but it's been about. I mean, they have not liked us since we brought this to them. They have resented our existence. So,
It's quite that is kind of an amazing story, actually, James. When they pulled the plug on Clearview, what happened? They just said, because you'd only been given a
we were
like
given interim approval,
interim,
and it was
exactly,
it
interim.
was an alter. It was approved as an alternate. It was never, it was never made the official. This is it design. And then they just pulled it. They said, no, we're removing the interim approval." And like I said, AASHTO really went crazy, and good for them.
Do you know the reason for pulling that interim?
No, no, they never really gave at least I don't remember. I mean, it's almost 10 years ago now, so I really don't remember the details. But they just announced it one day. They said, "Nah, sorry." And then the people who used it on a daily basis were like, "Wait a minute. This is better than your design, and we're going to keep using it." And they really made a big deal about it. So I was very happy about that.
Well, you have some fans for sure. And I mean, especially people. Well, so what would this mean? If it would had been approved for interim use as an alternate, and then that got pulled, would that mean that states that had implemented it had to remove those signs?
Well, there you go, right? What are we going to do? We have millions of dollars in infrastructure invested in this, and you're saying it's not approved anymore? I mean, that was one of the big arguments. It's like, what are you out of your mind? And AASHTO is a really interesting thing. It's very local, very powerful. It's all these state and local traffic officials who use this stuff on a day by day basis. So having them on our side was really wonderful. So
The acronym is ASHTO,
Ash,
ASH.
A Ashto, yeah, no, there's no H in there. Yeah, there's an H in there. Association of State Highway Officials or something like that.
Transportation officials maybe or
So
something.
I don't,
Okay.
I'm not sure.
Okay. I'm gonna put the acronym in there and everyone's gonna be like, what is she talking about? But um we got it. Okay. Wow. Yeah, that was a crazy story. Still can't believe it. And that was like when I think that was right after the first round of Trump or something. I mean,
2016.
yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So, hold on to your hats, everybody. Fasten your seatbelts, I should say. Buckle up. We might be in for another wild ride on that front. Um, let's see. Oh, and that reminds me. So I had a little question myself, which is Don Meeker came up with an amazing proportional system that only makes sense. Why?
Oh, but
Why?
I don't know.
Why did the highway administration refuse to even think about implementing it?
I don't
That
know
was
if they refused to think about it, but they
okay.
just never went along with it. And I don't know. I mean, it's a really remarkable system of it's all based on one beginning measurement, and it's all multiples and fractions of that. And I don't know. I don't know. It's so frustrating dealing with the highway administration.
I mean, I feel like you may have told me this at one point. You showed like a book of codes that they had put out, and
Yeah, manual of
yeah.
MUTCD, the Manual of Uniform Traffic Devices. Most of the book is page after page of signs with specific measurements.
So they just didn't want to have to toss that book in the trash, really.
Exact,
Yeah,
probably, yeah.
yeah. Okay. Thank you. Let's see. Jesse Kahn asks, which states don't use Clearview?
I don't know. I think I know the ones that do.
Tell us the ones
Uh,
that do.
well, there's the New York Thruway uses it, but the New York City used it for a while and then stopped. Michigan has a great implementation of it. If you ever go to Michigan, it's beautiful the way they've used it. California, Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, Pennsylvania. Um, those are the long ones that have been using it for a really long time, so I know. But I think the last time we calculated, it was being used in 30 or so states of the 50. So
Okay, so those are like the main ones that have really been
yeah,
implemented,
yeah, yeah,
but you up to
yeah.
30 states.
Right, right. But I remember California uses it in places, but not statewide. But I remember I was in Palm Springs and my wife and I were driving cross country back, and we drove through Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, and it was all Clearview. So anyway, that was cool.
That must have been kind of satisfying to see
Yeah, no,
your
it's very much so. Yeah.
type it and
But
to
like I said,
actually be able to read the sign. What do you know?
well, there's that, and also in Michigan. I haven't been there in a while, but my wife grew up in Michigan, so used to go to Western Michigan for vacation a lot, and it's really remarkable how good it looks in Michigan. The Michigan DOT really did a good job in the implementation of it.
Okay, let's see. Anonymous wants to know what is the time span since the project started?
Well, Don Meeker walked into my apartment in August of 1994, so there you go. So that's when I started being involved in it, and I don't know. I can't remember the last time we did any development on it. It's probably, oh, I don't know. I don't know. It's probably 10 years ago that we, launched it finally into, in its final form, but I don't know. I've lost
So
track.
but James I mean, Don had been working on it before he contacted you.
Oh,
So that,
certainly,
yeah.
certainly. Yeah, 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 yeah. So, yeah, I don't know. You could give Don a call. He'd be happy to talk.
Okay. All right. Let's see. We got a few more questions, 5 more questions. But we have time. So people, if you want to ask something, don't hesitate. And apologies for everybody not being able to see the questions that are already posed. I don't know what happened there. Another Zoom issue. So let's see. AMT asks, is your research available somewhere?
Go to the Clearview Highway website.
Yeah.
You know, there are links to all the various papers and studies that have done. So that's the place to go, you know, and really, it's a really great resource. There's a lot of information there, and it's very succinct and easy to access. So I would just go there and, you
That's
know,
a great place to start.
yeah,
Okay. This time I spelled it correctly. So Clearview HWY.
right.
Got it. And I see that Anna dropped that in the chat as well. Let's see. Robin Sherman asks, might all ADA faces have better readability and legibility than non-ADA faces?
Well, it's a specification that researchers, scientists have come up to sort of codify the stroke width to height ratios of signage in the public sphere. So, you know, hospitals, rooms, streetscape, you know, these are a set of parameters to sort of, um, you know, make sure that these signs function at a certain level. And let's face it, it's all liability driven, right? You know, if somebody, you know, falls off the curb, I couldn't read the sign. Well, the sign was ADA specified, so sorry.
Mm.
You know,
Oh, yeah,
you
I
know,
hadn't thought about that, but obviously, yeah. Okay.
you know,
Um, Kay Cheng, asks, I saw there was a controversy where Clearview was for a time not used in Pennsylvania, and then it was brought back.
that's
Can
the
you
thing we
talk
were
about
talking
that
about.
issue?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it was not used because of the government,
Right,
okay,
rescinding the approval, right. But I
okay,
don't think in Pennsylvania they tore down all the signs. They just didn't put new ones up with it, but that's all changed now. So,
okay. So they didn't tear down, they didn't like have to go out and remove
no, no.
the signs, or they actually put up a fight is what probably happened.
Well,
And
I don't know. I wasn't there.
okay, okay. Let's see. Adam asks, did you look into any existing type systems, highway type systems in other countries that you consider successful? So if you have any.
The only one that we looked at a little bit was the British transport system, the Jacques Kinnear and Margaret Calvert's London transport typefaces, and I think Don looked at those early on, and certainly the little swishy tail and the lowercase, I think he sort of picked up from their design. But no, you know, we looked at Dean, you know, DIN, which is everywhere, but no, you look at the stuff, you know, and let's face it, they all have similar. If they're going to perform at a certain level, they all have similar characteristics. It's just little things that, you know, differentiate them. So, I mean, Clearview Highway is used around the world. I mean, it's the English language design that was used in Israel. It's in various parts of the world. I mean, I don't have a real list. I'd have to go through my sales records, but it's out there, you know.
Wow, yeah, I'd be curious to find out other places that have implemented it. I guess I need to go to clearviewhighway.com.
Well, I don't even, you know, it's interesting. I don't know if a definitive list of that is available on there. I don't know. I
Hmm.
have to talk to Don about that. So,
It seems like something that you should, it'd be interesting to have
yeah, yeah, I
handy, a
guess.
record of. All right, two more questions, and in fact, if anybody has another one, send it over. Anonymous has apparently opened the website and says the website is great and very informative on the research. Maybe it would be a good idea to publish a book on the project too, like the standards manual titles. What do
So
you
does he, is he willing to fund it? If he wants to fund it, we'll publish it. Sure.
Okay, you just need to get somebody to pony up.
Yes.
Okay.
Stuff doesn't do itself, you know?
They don't, books don't publish themselves, right? Okay. But it would be a good idea.
Well,
Yeah, okay. Um, Adam asks, how does it work with licensing? Does every state pay for the fonts? And if so, do they buy them from the federal, excuse me, federal government?
no, they purchase their licensing from my company.
Okay.
Um, like I said, there are competing products out there that, so we could not, the reason we call it Clearview Highway is because we couldn't trademark the word Clearview by itself. So that was one of the things that we had to give up um, uh, when the federal government approved its use. So, and we had to publish all the drawings and spacing charts. So there are competing product out there. But no, if they want to use Clearview Highway, they have to license it. Just like any other font licensing scheme, you purchase a license based on the number of computers you're going to install it on the number of locations it's going to be used in. It's standard font licensing, you know. Um, so yeah, so that's the way that works. But no, the federal government doesn't sell anything. No, you know, people, you know, and there was a while ago, there was some company selling FHW Clearview, and we basically used Don's lawyers to make them stop putting FHWA in front of their version of Clearview. So I don't know. I really don't track the competing products with the Clearview name. I don't think they're very successful. I don't think people want to do all that work to digitize all those drawings and make all that spacing. I mean, they may think, oh, I'll do this and I'll make a lot of money. And then they start doing it. And it's like, oh, I'm not autistic enough to do this kind of work, you know? So,
Um, so they there's something already trademarked Clearview and it's a highway font or is something
no,
else?
no, no. No, you can't trademark Clearview.
Okay.
So we trademark Clearview Highway, Clearview Text, Clearview ADA. By putting those suffixes on them, we then get to register those trademarks. That's the reason why NPS roadway is NPS roadway, because originally the fonts were the fonts I did for National Park Service was NPS Rawlinson, and Rawlinson is a registered trademark of mine. And when the federal government wanted to release the roadway, it used to be called Rawlinson Roadway, but they wouldn't let me trademark Rawlinson and use it for their purposes. So I changed the name to NPS Roadway so they could put it in their manual and use it, and I didn't have to worry about the Rawlinson trademark name. And the interesting thing about Rawlinson is the whole thing was the Park Service was upset that it was confused with the Forest Service. And so Rawlinson's my wife's family name, and my wife's father, when he was a young man, worked for the Forest Service. So I figured I'd name the font designed for the Park Service Rawlinson to sort of keep the confusion going between the Forest Service and the Park Service. So that's why it's not, that's why it's NPS roadway.
Wait, so
It's
your
different.
father-in-law worked for the
Forest
Park
Service.
Service? Okay.
Forest Service.
Forest Service. No wonder the
Right.
confusion continues. That's
Right.
hilarious.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh my God. Okay. All right. I think we're done with the questions. Any last items you want to hear? everybody, before we say a big thank you to James? Okay, thank you so much for joining us today. That was fantastic. That was an incredible wealth of information. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome. You're
Yeah.
welcome.
Yeah, I mean, I
Okay.
really do. So everybody, this is our last letter form lecture for the spring, but stay tuned. We'll have more in the summer, and you know where to find out about the upcoming ones, letterformarchive.org/events.
Okay.
All right, thank you so much, James.
You're welcome.
Take
Take care.
care.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.